Hey Dom, how's it going?
Very good. How are you doing?
I'm good. How's the jet lag treating you?
It's fine. It's getting there. But I do have to say, like every time I feel so good coming to Korea, right? It's just so amazing being here. It's definitely my favorite country in Asia. It's like a blend of Switzerland, Italy, and Germany, right? Because you guys are so efficient and reliable. And I think in the modern digital world, that's just so important. And I think I'm really looking forward to see what we can do here in Korea.
Amazing. I mean, like I'm so happy to lead the ecosystem at IOTA, and I know IOTA as a L1 has been around for 10 years. So can you tell me like how you started IOTA and how you got into Web3?
So I have a very unusual story, I think. So I joined the entire blockchain space in 2011. I was 15 years old back then. And what really excited me back then was learning about Bitcoin and learning about permissionless innovation, right? That anybody could just take this technology, it's open source, and can innovate on top of it. And this power really convinced me, the power of the blockchain, right, as this global system and this distributed network, it really convinced me. And since then, I've been focused full time in this industry, working on multiple projects, and then in 2015, helping to co-found IOTA. And since 2015, I've been focused full time on leading IOTA through this roller coaster ride, which is the crypto markets, but then really focused on the most important objective for us, which is to actually lead real-world adoption. Because since the founding of IOTA, we've always said blockchain only makes sense if it's being used in the real world, right? It's not about building up a casino. It's not about trading use cases alone. It's really about how can we make sure that industries, that governments, and that people really benefit from this technology. And I think now we're really closer than ever to achieving that goal. And for us at IOTA, it was obviously a transformation because initially we had a strong focus on the Internet of Things, right? This machine economy where machines pay each other. And over the years, it sort of evolved towards this vertical integration, I would call it, into trade and logistics, right? And as we'll talk afterwards, trade is obviously one of the biggest sectors in the world. And for us at IOTA, instead of being this general purpose blockchain that does everything, 2 years ago we said, hey, no, we only focus on trade, and we focus on digitizing trade. We focus on providing trade finance solutions and payments for cross-border trade. And that's been our focus, and that's also been our success.
Amazing. So IOTA have quite a track record with institutions and government, and it also launched AFC-FTA projects. And how do you think this could lead to other regions as well?
So our big goal is to bring the real world on-chain, because the main thesis is the same way in which the internet helped us to become digital, or in which the cloud actually helped us to transfer data around the world instantly and scale compute, scale storage. In the same way, blockchain is helping to bring the world on-chain and solve some fundamental trust issues. And the biggest trust issues that we have seen is really in this cross-border context, right? How can one country trust another country? How can an exporter trust the data of an importer, right? And so this is why in trade today, everything is still paper-based, right? So think about, we always used to joke, our biggest competition is paper documents, right? Because trade is a very archaic system, and it still very much relies on paper documents being the single source of truth that the customs, that the port authorities, that the banks rely on in order to facilitate the clearing of goods and in order to facilitate trade finance transactions. And so this is why for us, our focus is to connect country by country around the world, to connect them to this global trade network that we're building on top of IOTA. It's called Twin, so twin.org, which is our trade solution. And what we successfully did is 5 years ago, we started this project in Kenya, working with the Kenyan revenue authorities, with the government, with Trademark Africa, to actually start a pilot to digitize these trade documents, get rid of paper documents, and do it in a fully digital form on the blockchain. And since then, we've proven the success in that pilot, and now we're really at the stage where we're focused on how can we scale our solution globally. So in November of last year, we had a very big announcement together with the AFCFTA and with with the Tony Blair Institute, who is also one of our partners, to actually set up or digitize the entire African continent. So it's a huge vision to connect 55 countries in Africa through IOTA and through this digital trade solution that we're building, so that we can increase cross-border trade in Africa, decrease costs, and also decrease payment times and payment costs. And it's a huge opportunity. And right now we are expanding across Africa, right? So we are going to connect 3 more countries this year to our trade solution. We're also doing a lot of work in the UK for the last 2 years, where we are covering a large portion of the ports in the initial pilot phase. We've done around 4,000 or so consignments that have been shipped between Poland and the UK. And now we're really focused on how can we bring this around the world. And this is obviously where Korea is a very relevant and very important part of that story.
Right. So talking about Korea, I mean, Korea is already a very digital savvy country. How do you plan to expand to Korea without interrupting the current flow?
Yeah, so I think one thing that I wanted to highlight here is what we're doing is we're basically empowering countries to export more. So we're not competing with the national single window systems, we're not competing with the national trade systems. Instead, what we are building is we're building the international highway. So we are making it possible for countries to actually export more, because a country like Vietnam, Singapore, Europe is not necessarily going to trust the data that comes from the Korean national system, right? This is where blockchain makes a lot of sense, because there's no amount of treaties, no amount of consortia or standards that can really compete with this permissionless global single source of truth, which is being enabled through a blockchain. Because what we can do with the blockchain, with IOTA, is we can really prove the origin of the data, we can prove the authenticity of the data, and we can prove that the data has not been tampered with. And I think in a cross-border context, that's hugely valuable, because now a port can actually trust where the data comes from. And this is exactly where our objective is actually to partner up with a single window system here in Korea and also in other countries to connect their local data with this international highway, so that companies who are in Korea, who are exporting to the US, who are exporting into other countries, can actually seamlessly trade globally through our solution. So we are like the global solution for those local partners.
I see. Is there any utility associated with IOTA token?
Yes, of course. So of course, all of this runs on chain on the network. As you can see here, there is like many different use cases and many different utilities where the blockchain is being used, right? So we issue digital identities for the traders, so that they can actually identify themselves in a cross-border context. So you can know, hey, which company is coming from where, right? So usually what we do, so our main partners, which is kind of ironic, right? Because we're a blockchain company, but our main partners are the governments. So we really focus on partnering up with the governments and connecting into their systems today. So for example, in Kenya, we connected to 34 different government systems, getting their data, putting it on chain, making it verifiable, and making it shareable. One of those data points is, for example, with the chambers, right? The company chambers in every country, so that a company can actually identify themselves on chain. So this is where digital identity comes into play. And verifiable documents is a very important one, right? You want to actually have the data on chain, and once it's on chain, you can verify where the goods come from. And it's exactly where we do this with trade documents, we do this with invoices, trade receivables, put all of that data on chain, tokenize it, so that it can then actually be used and shared. We're also tokenizing assets, right? This is our main focus with IOTA at the moment. How do we enable trade finance? And the way that we enable trade finance is that the goods are being tokenized, right? Either a container of goods, imagine a shipment of electronics that reaches the port here in Busan, for example, right? Reaches the port, we tokenize the goods, and then once they're tokenized, you can actually receive trade finance because you have a good collateral, right? You put it in a digital form, and now somebody can provide the financing using that collateral as a security. And this is the main innovation behind blockchain, right? Because now we can do asset-backed financing in an instant fashion that no bank can do today. No financial institution can do what we are doing. And so we really focus on tokenizing assets, for example, critical minerals, but we also do commodities like coffee, garments, and also focusing on goods in the next phase. Obviously, automating workflows, right, where we really automate also through AI, on-chain finance, which I've already mentioned, and product passports, right? So you can actually identify where the goods come from. So all of that happens on-chain. All of that consumes like resources. And so the best analogy that I always try to give is what we are doing with IOTA is we're building the AWS of blockchain, right? So you pay for the compute, you pay for the storage, and what we're doing with Twin is we're building the Amazon storefront, right? AWS is the underlying infrastructure, which is IOTA, and Amazon is the storefront, is the application that builds on top, which is Twin.
So how does Twin generate revenue? Is it a dApp?
It's a network, so you should think about it like Swift, right? What we're building with Twin is like the Swift of cross-border trade. So the countries can really export more easily with each other. And what we're doing there is we're obviously focusing on bringing these real-world assets on-chain, data, identity, and assets, and then make them accessible within this network. So Twin is, for one, an open source solution. This is why the governments trust us, because we're not going there as a for-profit company. We're going there as an open source non-profit foundation. And the second thing is, obviously, it is a consortium as well. It's a non-profit foundation that we have founded together with the Tony Blair Institute, with the World Economic Forum, Trademark Africa, and others, to really bring the trust to this solution. And then obviously it's also this product, this solution that others can rely and build on.
Amazing. I've also heard that there were some use cases and pilot businesses that have gone in UK and Africa. Could you share some of them?
Yeah, so the most concrete example is what we've done in the UK, right? Where we shipped goods from Poland to the UK. And obviously the UK has a big problem because of Brexit. They had much more stricter export controls. And so this is where, for example, oftentimes they rely on, they still rely on paper documents, and if there's one mistake on the paper document, they have to throw away the entire shipment. And so what we have done is we digitize the certificates, export certificates, all the trade documents, and we send them digitally to the customs. And with our solution, they were able to clear the goods within hours, what usually took them 2 days. Right? So there's a huge benefit for the government to actually use blockchain for cross-border trade. But it doesn't stop there, right? This is just a benefit for the government to clear customs, decrease costs, and increase revenues, because they're able to clear more goods faster. But there is a huge benefit also for the company, because now we can tokenize the assets and they can get much better financing options. And so this is what we've done in the UK for the last 2 years in pilot programs across different ports in the UK. We've done the same in Kenya, where in Q1, end of Q1 this year, right, in March, we're going to run in production in Kenya. So far, we've been doing the pilot for the flower industry in Kenya to actually digitize all the flower industry. And now we are opening it up to all the different commodities in Kenya. So that's really exciting. Something else that we've done is, for example, in Rwanda, we've been tokenizing physical assets, like critical minerals, that are very important for the semiconductor industry here in Korea as well. And what we enable there is we provide much better financing options for the local farmers, the miners, the companies there. For example, we work with one mining company that specializes in tantalum. And currently, they don't have any financing options available for them, right? Because it's an SME, it's a local company. It's too expensive for banks to onboard them, and therefore they can't get good financing options. So today, they pay around 20% interest on getting trade finance, right? 20%. So imagine like 20% of all your value being gone just because you need to get access to liquidity. And so what we have done is, in this initial pilot where we've done a few $1 million worth of goods, is we've tokenized the assets once they reach the port or the warehouse. And we tokenize the warehouse receipt, we tokenize the title ownership, and then we provide better financing options digitally. We pay the miners in stable coins, because now they can get the payment instantly. They can get it on a weekend, and they don't need to wait a week or two to get the payment, because obviously Africa is not connected globally as other SWIFT countries might be, right? And now they can get the payment instantly, and they can get much better financing options. And this is a huge, huge unlock for a lot more growth in trade finance. And you can actually see the opportunity here, right? And so this is why for us at IOTA, the core focus is on trade, because this is where we see that we have an opportunity like no other blockchain to actually conquer that market and to be this global solution for trade. And so our focus is really on tokenizing physical assets, commodities, critical minerals, trade receivables, bring them on-chain, and then provide a new trade finance ecosystem where including many retail investors can participate, but also especially institutional investors can participate and provide the financing for these good assets where we can verify where they come from. And so I think this is really one of the key innovations where blockchain makes a lot of sense, right? We provide the data that is verifiable on-chain, we provide the identification, so you know who you're trading with, and we provide the tokenized assets, and this just enables this new ecosystem to really flourish.
I think that's a wrap. Do you have any words to the audience?
I think it's very exciting to see what's happening here in Korea, right? And I think this is exactly the right step forward. As I said before during the private launch already, I think one of the key lessons is like we cannot do this alone, right? We have to partner with others. And I think it's very exciting to see which kind of ecosystems are going to be built here and what we can do together. And yeah, Lo, I'm really excited to be a lot more here. And looking forward to see what will come out of this conference. I have to say, like, this is definitely one of the best conferences that I've been to, because I'm really sick and tired of crypto conferences. And so I think this is much better. And so really thank you to the organizers as well for putting together this event.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.